Hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first installment of Speaking for Career Growth. I'm Michael Barris, your friendly neighborhood transformational speaking coach. And the aim of this series is to help you use the power of your voice to make such an impact that it's going to resonate throughout your career. I'm not just talking about superficial eye contact, hand gestures, and that kind of technical stuff. It's all very important, but there's so much more that you get when you connect with what I call your inner power. It gives you the ability to resonate with your audience, to drive people to follow calls to action, to establish yourself as a thought leader, to help you find clients, help you close deals. And it's literally worth $1 million if you know how to use it right. So today I'm going to start giving you some of the tools you need in order to use that. Hi, see we got some people ready. Hi, Ivan. Thanks for checking in. And there's Joy. Hi, Joy. Good to hear from you. See you there. So I don't know if you can hear in the background. Can you hear that? That's construction that's going on below my office right now. This was not scheduled when this plan began. So let me know if that noise becomes very distracting, because it is. Well, we may have to do something else about this today, because it may sound louder to you than it does to me right now. To me, it sounds awfully loud right now. But at any rate, let's proceed. So the idea here, this series came out of a question which I think is often top of mind for many people, which is, what do I got to do to get promoted around here? Because let's face it, you're not often kind of walked through the procedures. You have to kind of guess. You may have a mentor here and there. And those performance reviews, to me, are not necessarily for getting you advanced. Rather, they're to kind of create a paper trail and to document your progress at a company in case they feel that you're not a fit ultimately. But if you want to get ahead, there are certain realities that you have to consider. First of all, there are always going to be people around who are going to be promoting themselves aggressively. They're going to send emails to the boss. Thanks, Joy. Joy's telling me that sound isn't too bad. So I think we'll accept too bad for now. Hey, this is authentic. Hey, you got to pay for this kind of authenticity, right? So if you're trying to get, as I was saying, there's always people around who are going to be promoting themselves more aggressively. They're going to send emails to the boss saying, hey, boss, did you see that XYZ project? Wasn't that a fantastic response? I don't know if you know, but I was involved in doing that kind of thing. Or you may just have good old office politics to deal with. There are people who are very adept at understanding how to use the enthusiasms or the prejudices of a person with influence to leverage a benefit in their own self-interest, in their career, whatever. Then there are certain workplaces that want to see you show that you're more of a team player. They want to step up when they need volunteers to do things. Yeah, you pay for that kind of authenticity, all right. Thanks, Joy. And there also are places, often I think with places that have older cultures, where the rules are very entrenched. And if you want to get ahead, well, you have to get into this role, stay there for a while, maybe years, until somebody departs that role, and then you can move in. That all said, there's also the one way that most people, I think, try to do, which is they think, I'm going to let my work speak for myself. And that's not a good idea, because aside, all these reasons I've just pointed out to you show that there's a lot competing for you to get the kind of attention that's going to get you up the ladder here. There is, however, one fairly reliable way, which is this: learning to speak with impact. And there's the reasons for this. This is not some idealistic thing. I love language. I'm a guardian of the language and all that kind of thing. There are very real, practical reasons for this. Mainly, it's where the money is. And even if you're not a for-profit organization, if say you're a nonprofit or some other type of organization, you still want to have people who can help you achieve your mission. Because look at this. When you're speaking, you have a good chance. Our construction expert, Dwayne C. Barney, who I know from a coaching group, he has an excellent person who teaches people in the construction industry how to start their own businesses. He says, construction in the background makes me feel right at home. Well, come on, Dwayne, come on over. We can use a couple more helpers downstairs. The look at these skills that go together, that make speaking and business very compatible partners. When you can speak, you're able to meet customer needs. You find ways to save time. You find ways to cut costs. You find ways to increase productivity. You're able to resolve conflicts. You're able to nurture collaboration, and you're able to attract talent. That's business. That's where you're going to fulfill your mission, whether it's achieving certain profit goals or meeting some other measure of success. So that's one reason why speaking with impact is so important. Now, before we go any farther, let me invite you to take advantage of a little tool I've created here. This is something called the 4 phases of a great speech. It's a handy 4-step tool that shows you how to take any audience from an opening statement, the hook, through a couple of different phases to get them to buy into an idea or a product you're trying to sell or to buy some sort of service. And I'd like you to you can copy those comments that are on the slide. I would like to put the comments in the chat window here, but I don't see how to do it at the moment. But if you copy that link, it'll take you to the framework that you need. And it's very useful. I urge you to use it. It's a little thank you gift to me because you're here today. All right. So let me talk a bit now about helping you use your speaking voice to advance career growth. Some time ago, I was working with a coach who some of you may know. Her name is Ulrike Burzo. She was really my first coach, and she knew me when I was in Toastmasters. And I'd established a bit of a reputation as a speaker. I was ambitious. I wanted to do more with my speaking to have an impact on a large group of people out there, because one of my fondest thrills is helping people to realize their potential. All righty. So I was told that, Mike, if you write a book, you can use it as a platform to speak. I thought, well, that's interesting. What could I do? And this idea I had was that I wanted to create a book where I'd kind of be on the reader's shoulder and in their ear. And so I came up with a little book called How to Become a Super Speaker. And I'm just going to show it to you for the cover. This is not an ad. This is just simply for purposes of our talk. But you can get it at Amazon. No, I'm just kidding. There's the book. It's really a short little thing, just 100 pages. But the core of it is 7 principles for speaking with confidence and connecting with audiences. And the thing you learned, the thing that bothered me most of all, was that I hated the way that public speaking is conventionally taught in programs, in books, in certain courses. And what they always seem to miss, the point they always seem to miss, is that speaking isn't about the speaker. You know what it's about? It's about the audience. And too often the focus is on the speaker, as if speaking was occurring in a vacuum, or as if there weren't any audience at all. But of course, that's silly, because the only reason you're standing up there speaking or in front of a computer screen like I am now is because there's an audience out there that's willing to listen to you, to give you an opportunity to share what value you have, to motivate them, to inspire them, tell them a story, bring them news, whatever. It's the audience. The audience is the reason you're there. And yet this point is woefully neglected out in the mainstream. I don't know why, but I have a feeling I do know why. You see, I'm a musician. I invested a lot of time trying to figure out how to get people to listen to my gigs And moreover, how to impress the club owner to bring back, or else I wouldn't get another gig. And these same skills I used, the same feeling about this love for the importance of connecting with the audience has followed me in all my other pursuits. And I've had kind of a big range of things I've done. I've been a journalist. I worked for Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal, which has, at the time, apparently 2 million subscribers it had at one point. But with the internet, things like that are really worldwide now. It's hard to estimate how many millions of people are out there now. And I've been a university professor. I taught public speaking and essay writing or argumentative writing at Rutgers University. If there's any Rutgers alums out there, students, feel free to give me a shout out. I've also worked in PR. I was the senior writer for a Chinese business school. I don't speak Chinese, but I do speak English well enough that I was able to listen to their speakers in English and write articles about it. And I've experienced the whole corporate, the organizational, the ups and downs of it, the organizational roller coaster, the career roller coaster. As I said in my introductory talk last week, I've been up, I've been down, I've been all around, like many of you. But when it comes to speaking, this notion that it's about the audience is firm in my mind. And so I came up with 7 principles. And here they are. Make delivery the priority. Put on a show. Display your personality. Feel the fear, but keep practicing. Give the audience a reason to care. Reveal what's inside you. And make things easy to follow. Now, in the weeks to come, I'm going to take a different principle each week and show you how applying this principle helps you become a more dynamic speaker in the workplace and gives you the kind of impact that will follow you throughout your career and hopefully accelerate your rise to getting to your next plateau in your career. Or maybe you're a new leader now who's just recently arrived in the role. Congratulations. But you're suddenly discovering that getting audiences to listen to you and to engage them and to have impact is harder than you thought. One moment, let me have a little drink. Because the takeaway is that the audience audiences can be very broad. If you're a new leader, you may find yourself speaking to an increasingly diverse group of stakeholders who are including many non-native English speakers. This is assuming that the business is being done in English. And as a result, if you're a tech person, say, and you're used to speaking with other tech folks about technical issues, it may be very challenging for you to suddenly have to speak about technical things to people who are not experts. You realize, oh my goodness, how much do I really understand about my topic? Because one of the hardest things you can do is to try to translate fine details into broader terms that anybody can understand. So we're going to be looking at things like that as we go ahead. And today we're going to start with principle number 1, which is make delivery the priority. Now, as I said, we live in an age of content. It's very easy to think that, wow, with my phone here, here's my phone, I can get anything I want. I can give you dates of things that happen. I can peek in on what's going on today. I can even project the future. At least some people feel you can on the internet. And to me, it can get a little bit of what I call content adoration syndrome, which is really falling in love with the whole idea of having content. But it's not necessarily a healthy obsession, because audiences have limited attention spans. Research has shown that the average audience may only be able to concentrate for 10 minutes. And yet, in the days when Abraham Lincoln delivered his 2-minute Gettysburg Address, people were used to hearing speakers speak for something like 2 hours. In fact, on the day that Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address to usher in the consecration of the new cemetery for the fallen soldiers, the the main speaker was someone who really spoke for 2 hours. But what got remembered was Lincoln's 2-minute speech. Anyway, the point here is that it's content. It's not the content which you need to be worried about most ultimately. It's whether you're creating a delivery that's going to get their attention and hold them and make them continue to listen. Now, in case you're a skeptic out there and you like to have scientific proof, I have some for you. Let's have a look here. I want to tell you about an experiment that was conducted in 1970. This is a long time ago for some of you, not so long ago for some of you. And the idea was to have a professional actor impersonate an academic and speak to a group of bona fide academics and professionals at a legitimate academic conclave. So they found an actor whose name is Michael Fox. Now, this is not Michael J. Fox, the actor who starred in Family Ties and the Back to the Future trilogy. This is another actor who, however, did appear on an episode of Batman and an episode of Hogan's Heroes. And he was invited to speak at this topic on, frankly, it was a nonsense topic. It related to mathematical theory and game theory. And you can actually see his talk on YouTube, where he's just spouting gibberish and double talk. He's got a very nice personality. He pretends to, he's kind of joshing around, being very folksy. And at the end of all of that, Michael Fox, who was advertised as Dr. Myron Fox, he got very positive evaluations from the audience that watched him because they just liked his manner, even though no one in there had any idea what he was talking about, or at least they may not have really had any idea what he was talking about. They may have thought they did. The point is that this experiment was really conducted to, I think, question the validity of teacher evaluations. You know, what's impressing students? You know, I know when I was a teacher at Rutgers, we had periods when the professors were getting evaluated. And I know many professors got very political. They started buying cookies to distribute to the students. Hey, that's not a slight on Rutgers. I'm just saying that this was something that certain people would do to curry favor with the students at the time they needed favorable evaluations. At any rate, you can extrapolate from this to see that it's some proof that delivery beats content. But, you know, going on about professors, you didn't need to have a research experiment prove that to you, really. Just think about professors you liked who were your favorites. It wasn't, you know, they didn't make the theorem the face of the course they were teaching on. You know, they didn't make, you know, arcane information the focus. It was because they created a human experience for you in which you were being met on a very human level. Your emotions were being aroused, probably by the way they spoke. Maybe it was their tone of voice. Maybe they joked around a bit. Maybe they were very personable. Maybe they just had a certain manner that you found appealing. You may have even thought it was very quirky. But the point is that it was his delivery or her delivery that really made the impact on you, not necessarily the content. Now, I want to stress that since I am a former member of the faculty of Rutgers University, and I have been a journalist who's worked for the Wall Street Journal, I turned out something like 300 bylines for the journal over 3 years, I think it was. I'm not going to tell you don't do everything you can to provide good content. That's very important. In fact, I'm obsessive about my content. But ultimately, if you want to make the big impression with the audience, you have to care even more about how you're delivering it, how it's presented, how it resonates, because that's really where the polish comes. And in some cases, that's really where the money is in getting across your content. Why go to all the trouble of researching and finding excellent content if it's not going to resonate with you? So the big takeaway from all that is that when your goal is to make an indelible impression on your audience, delivery isn't simply an important thing in speaking. It is the most important thing. And I welcome people who will argue with me about that, because I think controversy is healthy. I wouldn't think this would be a controversial point. As I said, being a performer who understands that every time you step out on a stage, you got to entertain the audience. Even if you're speaking at a funeral, right, for a departed CEO or something, there is still an element of being a performer in it, and you're working the emotions of the audience. You're not just some dull robot speaking words. I mean, there are people like that, but are they very interesting? No, they're not. My goal is to help you become the most dynamic, the most impactful speaker you can be. So let's look now a little more specifically about how to apply this to the workplace. And how are we doing with our comments? We got some folks. Okay. As I mentioned, once you got that phone in your hand, or you're conscious that you have access to billions of bits of data out there, that can actually fuel a desire to use it. Let's just face it. It's sort of like there's some thinking out there that if you put food in front of people, there probably is research done on this, and even if they're not hungry, sooner or later it's going to get eaten. I mean, that was the case on the news desks I worked on. It didn't matter if you put out a bag of nails. If you just put it on the copy desk overnight, by morning it would be gone. So it's like with content. You want to consume it. You can't help yourself. But the reality is, that first of all, even if you're at a regular meeting and you got a leader who's focused on productivity, they're not going to want every bit of arcane information you can muster. Leaders who prioritize being productive in meetings, they don't want lots of granular detail. They just want what matters. I mean, can some of you comment on that? Let me ask you right now. Let's do a little, you guys are online. Let's do a little vote right now. Just using a very simple rating system of number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4. How much do you try to be conscious of the detail that you produce? 1 would be, we're going from 1 highest to 4 most complicated. So if you're really good at prioritizing, give yourself a 1. If you're not so good, give yourself a 2. If you're only moderately good, give yourself a 3. And if you're really good, if you're not good at all, give yourself a 4. I don't think you have anything to worry about by answering that one. Now, in the meantime, while you're doing that, I'm just going to get a couple more slides up here while we proceed. All right. Yeah, we're just getting a few more slides up here. Oh, so Joy gives herself a 1.5. I know you're a good writer, Joy. You're very concise. There's no question about that. But even good writers need editors. Everybody needs an editor, right? That's one thing you'll learn. Okay. Okay. So now let me give you an example of how to apply this principle, delivery beats content, to an actual work situation. This is a client of mine who was involved in my coaching program. Her name is Neha Okade. She's a very talented young woman. It was really an honor for me to work with her. And her company, Adlix Fragrances, came to me and said, we have an employee who is going to be making a talk at the major conference for the fragrance industry. And she's a non-native English speaker. And could you help her work with this to make sure that she gives a good talk? Because she had to deliver a 30-minute presentation to an audience of 300 peers at this major industry conference. And given the impact she could make with a successful presentation, it was imperative that her performances be of the highest possible quality. Now, there were slides with this presentation, and I think in those situations, many presenters and employers think that we really got to load up the content. I was very adamant that we put Neha's ability to resonate with the crowd emotionally up front. And she was very, very, very detail-oriented and very much wanted to be precise in the point she got across. But she agreed that there are times when too much detail could be distracting, or that too many slides would not be effective. And then later, her higher ups suggested also that we put something at the end, give the audience something that they could take away. It would actually be more of an inspiring kind of comment. All this is telling you is that it's the delivery ultimately that puts the professional coat of polish on the presentation that you need. And the end was she hit a home run. And I'm not just blowing smoke here. You can go to her LinkedIn site and you'll see all the tons of plaudits she got from people in the industry who saw her. She was standing at a podium, so there wasn't a whole lot of room to move around the body, but we did work on things, certain like hand gestures and eye contact, and mostly how to punctuate the cadence of your voice so that it was interesting to listen to. It fell on the ears in a pleasing way. Because as I say, if you go to conferences and you have a parade of knowledgeable people, one after the other, by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, heads are banging off desks or in their laps because they're suffering from speech fatigue. So as it turned out, she was really the second speaker in the second morning of the conference, which I think worked to her advantage. The audience was awake, mostly. They would have eaten. Actually, I generally feel the worst time to ever present a speech in any kind of a conference or any sort of an all-day event is right after lunch. Oh boy, because then people could be struggling to stay awake, or they're looking at the clock, or they're just not very sharp. At any rate, the point here is that it was the attention to the delivery here that made Neha a standout, even though her content was also a standout. But ultimately, it wouldn't have mattered if she had standout content if she didn't have an outstanding presentation style as well. All right, well, that gives you an idea of how to use the principles of super speaking to make yourself a more effective performer. Once again, I want to invite you to go to that link I shared at the beginning of the talk and to help yourself to that framework. It will show you how to take a listener from the opening sentence to buy-in, and it's something that you will use and will help you in your career as you strive to build a more dynamic style. So the takeaways here from our talk today are that if you want to be dynamic, find out what the essence is of what the person you're speaking for or the leader of the talk wants. That's number one. What do they need to learn from me? And then address that as directly as you can. Practice if you can at home. Record yourself on your phone or on your computer. Let me just have a sip. And you try to position yourself so that you look like a leader. If you're sitting down, sit back in your chair, shoulders back. Try to present an air of majesty to your delivery if you can. Now, I know what has happened with so much remote working is that I think people could maybe they start taking it for granted. In the beginning, they were terrified. And maybe by now, they've gotten to the point where they're not even thinking that they're really on a camera anymore. But you really are. And as you know, when you close up on me, everything about me is closed up. It's like you suddenly have a very intimate relationship, and you get a feeling about my personality, my biases, maybe my quirks, my enthusiasms. It really colors your impression of me. So that's an important part of the science of delivery. Also, do your best to try to put yourself in the shoes of your audience. This is really where so many technically oriented people fall down. If you can understand their challenges and their problems and then speak to them, that will make you an effective and possibly inspiring speaker. Okay, that's it for now. We'll tune in again next week, same time, 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, for another look at speaking for career growth. I want to thank you very much for listening. My name is Michael Barris, and feel free to give comments on LinkedIn, connect with me, or just reach out any way you can. All right, take care. And if you have any questions, I don't see we have any questions now. No questions. So we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody. See you again soon. Take care.